What of Gematria? What is that all about? Wikipedia says, Gematria is an alphanumeric code of assigning a numerical value to a name, word or phrase based on its letters. A single word can yield multiple values depending on the cipher used. Gematria is a Hebrew alphanumeric code or cipher that was probably used in biblical times and was later adopted by other cultures. Unlike numerology, Gematria sums are usually derived from a written text and tend to only involve the nouns for calculation. One could speculatively regard computing as a form of Gematria. Think of character encoding. Sean Heimel wrote, "If computers operate in binary, then how are we able to store letters and words? To do this, we assign numbers to characters. This is known as character encoding." To understand how character encoding works, let's create a simple example. First, assign the numbers 126 to the English alphabet. To write a simple encoded message, we substitute the numbers for the letters. For example, 85121215. By using numbers, we have constructed the word hello. So, there you have a word, hello, that, from another viewpoint, is actually a number, able to participate in the world of mathematics. Why should it be any different for the whole of reality? Whatever you believe isn't mathematics actually is mathematics. If you decrypt the code, you will always find numbers. Think of a video game. If you take the game all the way back to its root, you will discover binary code 1s and zeros. If you take observed reality all the way back to its foundations, what you find is sinusoidal code 1s, zeros, 1s, and all the numbers in between in continuous sequence. Wherever you see someone emphasizing the power of words, bear in mind that someone else will emphasize the power of numbers, and the latter will in fact convert all words into numbers and assign them a value, meaning and power. This raises a profound question that most magicians, as well as most scientists, are uninterested in. What is the basic form of reality? Is it verbal, numerical, or non-verbal and non-numerical, which is to say material? Is it cognitive language, verbal or numerical, implying a mental reality, or sensory non-language, matter, implying a physical reality? But bear in mind that everything science knows about matter is derived from mathematics, so how can matter in fact be divorced from mathematics? For mystics, everything is made of experience, of experiential states, which they call cosmic consciousness, or non-duality, or bare awareness. Everything about reality, and any capacity to perform either magic or science, and is not science a form of magic, depends on what reality is ultimately made of. You obviously can't control reality if you don't know what reality is. Science thinks reality is matter, but in fact all of science's power comes from mathematics, without which science would be useless, as it was when it was alchemy. Reality is actually about numbers, just as Pythagoras said. It's not about words, as the ancients believed. Words are not ontological. Numbers are. Reality is numerical reality, not verbal reality. The phenomenal appearance of numbers is that of matter. Matter is not a thing in itself. It's the sensory expression of underlying numerical patterns, functions and operations. Numbers aren't marks on paper. They are ontological objects, concrete entities. They are the true atoms of reality. Scientists believe that atoms are responsible for all material appearances. In fact, atoms are mathematical, which is to say numerical, and so numbers are responsible for all material appearances. In the magical world, according to the ancients, words correspond to the physical world they describe. To ritualistically invoke words to achieve specific effects causes those effects to happen in the physical world. This is the opposite of New Age thinking and Eastern mysticism. New Age guru Alan Watts said, "What we have forgotten is that thoughts and words are conventions, and that it is fatal to take conventions too seriously. A convention is a social convenience, as, for example, money. but it is absurd to take money too seriously, to confuse it with real wealth. In somewhat the same way, thoughts, ideas and words are coins for real things. The idea here is that words are mere labels which have no connection at all to the essence of what they describe, and you are lost if you imagine that names and the things they name have any ontological correspondence. The worldview of New Ageism and Eastern mysticism is therefore the inverse of the magical worldview, where it's impossible to distinguish between words and what they describe since everything in creation is made of words. In magic, every human being has their own name, their own defining word. God creates a person by uniquely naming them. Individuation, how a thing is identified as an individual thing that is not some other thing, is governed by names. If you know an individual's true name, you can magically control them. Joshua J. Mark wrote, in ancient Egyptian theology, the Ren was one's secret name. This was given to one at birth by the gods, and only the gods knew it. Scholar Nicolaus B. Pumphrey writes, the only way that the fate or destiny can change is if a creature of higher power changes the name. As long as the name of the being exists, the being will exist throughout eternity as part of the fabric of the divine order. The Ren was the name by which the gods knew the individual soul and how one would be called in the afterlife. The goddess Renanute gave people their secret name, which was never to be disclosed, to protect him from harm. To have a name was to have an identity. To not have one was to have no identity. The Egyptians believed that if you lost your name, you were no longer a distinct person and would cease to exist as an identifiable being. You would become lost, diffuse energy, banished to the wilderness. Each owner of a tomb inscribed their name all over their tomb. They wanted their name to last forever. They wanted family, friends and the world to keep saying their name to help them flourish in the afterlife. This obsession with name only makes sense if the Egyptians believed it was absolutely connected with a person's essence. It was therefore a core aspect of the soul. Indeed, the soul could not exist without it. An Egyptian could be attacked in the afterlife by destroying their name in this world. The heretical pharaoh Akhenaten, a monotheist who denied the traditional Egyptian gods, was after his death subjected to a campaign to obliterate every trace of his existence and every mention of his name. So exhaustive was the campaign that Akhenaten almost vanished from history. The Romans referred to this practice of obliteration as damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. Wikipedia says, felons would be erased from history for the crimes they had committed. Lucius Aelius Sejanus suffered damnatio memoriae following a failed conspiracy to overthrow Emperor Tiberius in AD 31. His statues were destroyed and his name obliterated from all public records. The great god Ra had many names which were unknown to either gods or men. These names gave Ra specific powers. His most secret name gave him his supreme divine power. This was the name that Isis tricked out of him, thus giving her the power of Ra. Scientists individuate everyone by way of atoms and DNA code. The ancient Egyptians knew nothing of such things, so they used the name as the means for establishing a unique person. Everyone had to take the utmost care with the true name. The Egyptians believed that if you wrote the name of a dangerous animal or evil spirit on pottery then smashed it, you were killing the thing, or at least killing its power over you. This is what magicians have always believed. Magic, as conventionally practiced, is all about names and words, and how to manipulate them to affect a named person. Through the use of verbal language, specific effects are achieved in the physical world concerning named individuals. In this view, a named person can be magically reached from anywhere. A magician does not need to be in physical contact with their target to magically affect them. The use of their name is sufficient to bring the magician into direct contact with them, across any distance. A person's name locates them in space-time and serves as a tracker of their location. It's the ancient version of GPS. In the magic space, to name someone instantly means that you have located where they are, even if you physically have no idea where they are, and the magic you then perform will infallibly reach them, and only them. It can't affect any unnamed person since it can't find its way to them. To most people, magic and spells are fanciful and are best confined to the pages of Harry Potter. Magic based on mere words is a tough sell. The idea that divine words control reality is one thing, people could just about buy that. But the idea that words invented by humans can control physical reality is much harder to swallow. After all, the world existed before any humans, so how could human words control the world? But if the language of reality, the divine language of reality, can be identified, then language can indeed control reality, since reality is made of that exact language. The revolutionary subject of ontological mathematics agrees with the magical worldview that reality is living, mental and made of language, and that language not only describes reality but also is reality. However, it also asserts that the language of reality is mathematics, the language of numbers, and not any kind of language based on words. God's language isn't a language like English or Spanish. God's language, the language of creation, the true language of magic, is mathematics. This comes as a tremendous disappointment to magicians, most of whom are mathematically illiterate, or innumerate, as we should properly say, and would need the intervention of magic to gain any mathematical literacy. Magicians want to magic away mathematics as the answer to existence.